we're going to talk about coding for the musculoskeletal system. Your in-class assignment today is right here under session 14, musculoskeletal system and connective tissue abstracting. So the video I'm making right now that you're watching is going to assist you with some of the things that may be new concepts for you during this assignment. If it's not a new concept, it may just be a review, which is good too. Okay. So one thing you always want to keep in mind, not just from this musculoskeletal assignment, when I'm teaching you these concepts, these are every kind of coding you can do. These concepts carry through. It just happens to be this may be the first time you're encountering this concept if you're in your first or second mod. And so I want to reinforce these before you do this assignment, but I'm expecting you to know this for all kinds of coding. So number one is we only code for services that our doctor performed during this visit. If you go into your doctor and you had had an x-ray, or you'd had your mammogram taken, or you'd had a biopsy or some blood work, and you come into the office today to discuss those test results. Those tests were already performed. They've already been billed by somebody, whoever did them. So just because the doctor is in with you today discussing your test results does not mean we get to bill those tests again. So you have to read the note carefully. Did we do this service today? If, let's say you go into the office and you're like, hey doc, I think I'm pregnant, and he takes a urine sample and he runs a pregnancy test right then and gives you a result, that's a test we performed today, and we get to bill for that. But if it's blood test that you went to the lab last week and we just got the results, you did not do that today. The other thing that will happen is that the doctor, through the evaluation of the patient, will decide we need some additional tests or we want to send you to a specialist. So the doctor decides we want an MRI or a CAT scan, I want some blood work, I want to send you to physical therapy sessions, I want to send you to a cardiologist. This is part of the plan. This is the treatment plan of how we're going to treat your condition. We don't work for those other offices. We don't work for the MRI center. We don't work for the physical therapy office. We're just sending you there for care. So we don't get to bill for the services that are performed in another office. So we're going to send you to physical therapy. You make an appointment. You go for your physical therapy, your first visit 10 days from now. That office will bill those services. All right. Injury coding. When we are dealing with the musculoskeletal system of the body, we deal with a lot of injuries. Human beings do crazy things and hurt themselves. They are accident prone or just accidents happen. So with the musculoskeletal system, we see a lot of broken bones, sprains, strains, things like that. Also, if you've ever injured like your knee, your ankle, maybe your back, you know sometimes these injuries last a long time. Like somebody could be in their 40s or 50s and still have problems with a knee injury from playing football in college, and it was 30 years ago. These things happen with the musculoskeletal system. Part of selecting your code is to select for the episode of care. And there are three main choices for the episode of care, although when we get into musculoskeletal, there's actually more than three, but these are the three main ones that you see most of the time. And the A, D, or S will actually be placed as the last digit of your code when you select it. So the last digit of an A means it's the initial phase of care. D is the subsequent phase of care, which is the next phase. And then S is the sequela. So let me run through all these. A lot of coders will misunderstand the use of the A and the D. A lot of coders, even people who've been doing it for a while, will get this wrong. A lot of people think that the initial phase of care means the first visit after you had the injury, and then subsequent is all the other visits. And that is absolutely wrong. A is for the initial phase of care, not the initial visit. The initial phase of care is while that bone is still broken. So if the patient goes to the emergency room with a broken leg and we put a cast on, that's the initial phase of care. And let's say they follow up with their family doctor a couple of days later, that bone is still broken. It's in the cast. It's going to be broken for 6 weeks while it heals. And so we're going to use that last digit of A every visit until we know the bone isn't broken anymore. So how do we know the bone isn't broken? It's time for the cast to come off. We take the cast off, we re-x-ray it, and we see that the bone has healed. Now we have moved into the healing phase, or the subsequent phase, B. Now, let's say this isn't a leg. Let's say it's a wrist. And I've had a cast from my elbow to my fingers for 6 weeks. Okay? And it finally comes off, and I finally can bend my wrist. And I'm so happy because my wrist was probably really sore wanting to move. And we find that because my hand was in a cast for 6 weeks, my grip strength has reduced. Those muscles have gotten really lazy because it was not used for 6 weeks. And the doctor decides they want to send me to physical therapy to strengthen this wrist. So I go to physical therapy for 6 weeks, 3 times a week, to strengthen this wrist. All of those visits are going to be a last digit of D because my bone is not broken anymore, but I'm still in the healing phase from the break. So they're going to code the break with the last digit of D, healing. Okay? The last one is called a sequela. I also will refer to this in the classroom as a residual effect. It's the leftover condition once the healing is completed. So let's use a knee injury. Bad knee injury, maybe there was some kind of an orthopedic surgery going on. I went to physical therapy for weeks and weeks, and the result is I've got a bum knee for the rest of my life, and that's just the way it is. And maybe 5 years later, I go to my doctor and I say, my knee is really hurting me. It's never been right since I had that injury and that surgery 5 years ago, but it's been really rough lately. And the doctor does an exam and goes, let's send you to some physical therapy. Let's get some more strength in there. Let's do some treatment. That physical therapy office is going to code that same original injury, my sprain, strain, break, whatever it was I did 5 years ago. And they're going to tack an S on the end because my condition today is a residual effect or the leftover condition from the injury 5 years ago. It's called a sequela. Here in the classroom, the question will actually say sequela, or they might use the term late effect. That was the term when we were doing coding under the ICD-9 system. They used the word late effect. When we switched to ICD-10, they started using the actual word sequela in the code book. Prior to that, sequela wasn't in the code book. But they'll still use that word late effect. It all means the same thing. So let's look at how those A, D, and S are actually applied. So I'm going to start over here with this box. If you are new to coding, this may be all new information to you. If you are more senior, you've heard this before. In your ICD book, in your alphabetical index, you have 4 alphabetical indexes. The last bullet there in my box says, I highly recommend you tab the 3 indexes. You don't really have to tab the first one. It's like several hundred pages long. It's the main one you use most of the time. I highly suggest the next 3 you tab. You can buy sticky tabs at Walmart, Office Supply, Amazon, whatever. Great tabbing in your book. Okay, so in your main alphabetical index, it goes A through Z. And when you get to the Z's, flip one more page and you have the next index, and it's called the table of neoplasms. This is used for cancer tumors. We'll teach this another time. That section is only maybe 7 or 8 pages long. So get to the end of the neoplasms, and the next table is called the table of drugs and chemicals. That alphabetical listing is used when a patient comes in and seeks care as a result of a drug. Let's say an allergic reaction to penicillin, or my child got into the medicine cabinet and swallowed my blood pressure medication. Okay, that's when this index is used. So that one's kind of a longer section, probably a good 20 pages long. Get to the end of that section, and the very next index says external cause of injuries. So if you listen to all of this and you're like, I know what she's saying, I'm not new to coding, I know all this, it's just a refresher, now I need you to go to that index. That index is not what the patient's injury is. This index is, how did the injury happen? What caused the injury? And this can be a really fun section, funny, because there's codes for like being bit by a cow. There's a code for that my injury was caused because I was bit by a cow, that I was scratched by a bird. There's some really fun animal stuff in here. But specifically, I want you to go to fall. That the injury was caused by a fall. And we all know there are many ways to fall. You can fall downstairs. You can fall out a window. You can fall into a swimming pool. You can fall out of a tree. You can fall walking across your living room and tripping over absolutely nothing, and you could fall. We could fall by slipping on ice. We could fall because a dog ran in front of us and we tripped over them. Okay, there's a dozen ways we can fall. So a fall isn't just a fall. So there isn't just like one code for a fall. There's many, many options depending on how that fall took place. So the picture that I have on the screen is from the beginning of the falls. And we have fall due to bumping against a person due to ice. We had ice, bumped into somebody, it was icy, I went down. Maybe the other person went down too. Okay, so it would tell us there the code would be W00.0. Or maybe I just bumped into a person not due to ice and it would be W03. This index is a perfect example of why you do not code from the index. You do not look at that W03 and decide that's your answer, because you are wrong. You have digits you don't know about here. There are more digits to that code than what this page shows. So if you just write down W03, you might be on the right track, but you are not correct. Okay, so then we would go to that next section and make our choice. Move my picture. So I want you to now go to your code section of your book and go to the W00, which is the fall due to ice and snow. W00. And this is what you will find. You have W00, and then 0.012 or 9, depending on which one is appropriate for this question. So let's say that we fell on the same level due to ice and snow, which means we didn't fall into anything, we didn't fall up anything, we fell just on flat ground, and it was the ice or the snow that made that happen. We lost our balance and we went down. I want you to notice, when we're picking this code, that there is an X and a stop sign in front of my code. And if you see a symbol, you better know what that symbol means. And if you don't know what that symbol means, you better figure it out, because it's not there just to be pretty. It's there for a reason. So when you are looking at your page in your code book. Across the bottom are symbol definitions on both sides of the page, and find what the X means. My book and your book might be just a little bit different. Mine, the X says, see it? Should say placeholder X. Now, if you know what that means, great. If not, we still got to figure out what that means. But I'm going to tell you in just a minute. I'm going to explain to you what that means. And then the stop sign symbol means additional characters. The version of the book I'm actually holding doesn't have those same pictures. The version of the book I'm holding has a red circle with 7 inside of it, which also means 7th digit needed. So you'll see some different symbols depending on what version of the book you have, but you should have the X and the stop sign symbol like on my screen. So, additional characters, okay, we kind of are used to that. We're kind of making sure that we have all the digits that are required. Normally, when you see the requirement for an additional digit, usually your choices are like right underneath it. There's nothing there. Same with this one, same with this one, same. All of them say additional digits, but none of them have additional digits underneath it for you to pick from. So, when that happens, you look upward until you find the blue box. Now this one, the blue box is literally right there. It's just like 1/4 of an inch up. Sometimes the blue box is half a page up. Sometimes you have to flip a page back in time to find that blue box. So when you find the blue box, you know that you've got the right blue box because it says underneath it that it's for codes from the W00 section. If you had to go upward a ways to find the blue box, and let's say you missed the correct blue box, you shot past it and you found the one above it, this would not say the right code. So let's say I was at W01 and I missed the one at W01 and I found this one and go, wait a second, I'm not picking a code from W00, I need a W01. You know you're in the wrong spot, so keep looking. So always look at that sentence above it. Most students don't. I'll be honest, I preach this every time that you should look, but most students, I think, don't, but that's okay. And then it tells me what my choices of codes are to put in that 7th spot. A, D, or S, just like what we just talked about. We're getting there, one concept at a time. So let's say this W000 is my code choice. And A, this injury just happened. The patient just fell, is in the emergency room to have this checked out. So I want an A. I can't just stick an A like that. Because remember, the A has to be in the 7th digit. It says right there, the appropriate 7th character is to be added to each code from W00. Well, I have a W000. It's only 4 digits long. I need the A to be in the 7th spot. So what am I going to do for spot 5 and 6 that seem to be missing? What do I do with that? And that's the concept called placeholder X. What I do with that is I actually add X's to fill the empty spots so that when I stick the A at the end, it is in the 7th spot. Okay? when we are, oh, I should have had this on the right page. I'm going to pause the video for just a second. Okay, so here we are in the code book. These are the codes we were just looking at, okay? And of course, they're 4 digits long, just like what we were just talking about. But these codes, W030405, are only 3 digits long. They end at the W03, okay? So with that code, I would actually need to add 3 X's before I put my A into the 7th spot. So the number of X's needed depends on how many digits I have to begin with, because remember the A has to go in the 7th spot. So if I only have 3 digits, like my W03, I need 3 X's to put the A in the 7th spot. I could only need 1 X. I might need no X's. It all depends on how many digits I have to begin with. Okay, this is the last concept that I want to discuss in this video. And I'm going to talk about this box here. And notice again, it says the appropriate 7th character is to be added to codes from this section. So the same concept with that placeholder X when it's necessary. But this one, instead of having A, D, and S, it has more choices. So I want to talk about some of those other choices you will see. The A also now has a B, initial encounter. These are for fractures, broken bones, and was that fracture open or closed? Meaning, did the skin break? And so you have a different initial encounter choice depending on whether or not it is an open or closed fracture. Instead of just having D for the subsequent encounter, you actually have 3 of them now. Subsequent encounter for fracture with routine healing, as expected. Delayed healing means it's taking a long time. Or non-union. When a patient breaks their leg and we align it and we put it in a cast, sometimes the bone just doesn't break or doesn't heal. They still stay, half an inch apart from each other, and the bones never heal. So we take the cast off, we think you're all good, we x-ray you and go, holy cow, these bones are still not even touching. So that would be non-union. Non means no, union is the connection. So non-union means it is not together. Okay. So that's just some additional 7th digit codes that you may see if you get into doing fracture diagnoses. I do want to point out on this page, notice how these all have the X, but these ones don't. Your difference is how many digits they already are. Remember, the last digit is always in the 7th position. Well, these digits, or these codes, already have 6 digits. So if you put an A at the end, it's in the 7th spot without adding a placeholder X. So remember, I told you the number of X's will depend on how many digits you have to begin with. And so for those ones, you don't need an X at all because you already have your 6 digits. All right, so you have an ICA today for musculoskeletal coding. You'll need to use some of these concepts. You will need the index for the injuries. So make sure that you remember that it's there. You will need to use that 7th digit. You may or may not need a placeholder X to go along with it. I always teach those concepts together, so you may or may not need them. Okay, so good luck.